Everybody listen to We're Not Wizards, because we are the best, and we're not wizards, no matter what anybody says. Goodbye.
Hello and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for Season 6 and it's May. May the 4th. We have May the 4th. We've had that already. I'm just interested in kind of Pirate Day, potentially. I don't know why. Maybe I do know why. I'm feeling a bit saucy. Feeling actually maybe a bit ruthless. And when you do feel a little bit ruthless, and you feel a bit piratey, and all things nautical, there's only one person who you need to bring here. So joining me, I've got Johnny Depp. That's not true. Joining me, and he's a repeat offender, so it's his own fault if he's turned up again, and he's here for the bad banter. It's Mr. Roland MacDonald. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Back again. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Tired.
I'm kind of the
Ground
same.
down, late evening. That's good.
Relaxing
good.
time.
Yeah,
relaxing
winding
time.
down. Mm-hmm.
We were having a chat before in the green room, which, as you see, I've actually decorated, so it's now duck egg blue.
It's gorgeous.
Can't call it green room anymore. It's wonderful. It's absolutely stunning. And I was saying that we've had a chat before, but the last time we chatted was back in November. I tried to guess the year, and it's 2018. So it seems like, to me, it didn't seem that long ago. But then I looked at the time and was like, do we count that as a couple of years ago?
Year, right?
The lost year, haven't we?
The lost year. So,
haven't we? For everybody who's out there, first of all, thank you for joining us. The reason that we do this is because, well, I've stopped for a while, but now I'm back, really, because, my ego didn't allow me to kind of stay away. So there you go. So that's all I've got. That's really, it's like Forrest Gump. That's all I've got to say about that, really. And the second reason is that I had a chance to speak to Roland again. And when you get a chance to get a Roland back in on your podcast, and even in your life, you grab it with both hands. So that's what we're doing.
Very nice. Glad to be here.
So there you go. So how are you, apart from being tired?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Busy with a ton of things, which is why I'm tired, but they're all cool things. So that's all good. And looks like spring is finally turning a bit warmer, and that's all good. And we've been in quite a hard lockdown for most of the spring so far in the winter. So it's finally easing up, and that's really timely because it's starting to get boring.
Because am I right in saying you kind of work from home? Anyway, or do you have a little studio?
I think when I talked to you before, I think I still had my studio in the house, but now I have a studio out of the house. That's actually it's only 5 minutes from my house, so on foot. Okay. So it's not exactly a mission. It just gets me some oxygen before I connect to my computer in the morning. So,
you have to go out and about. Does that not mean if it's miserable outside, that you still got to get kind of dressed up? And you ever kind of like going down to the office just with your dressing gown on and went, it's 5 minutes away, I'm just going to sneak through here and see if nobody notices?
Nah, even if I work at home, I still get dressed. Psychologically important, I think. I know some people in the lockdown have been like, just sitting here and I'm only dressed halfway up kind of thing. But yeah, if I don't you've got to put jeans at least on for the day.
At least pair of
trousers,
pants, at least, really.
Yeah, you've got to get your pants on, haven't you? Otherwise, it's all downhill from there. You've got to take yourself seriously first.
It's never good, no pants and a leather seat. I mean, that might be good for some kind of home working, but it's not necessarily good if you're... I was going to say if you're involved in the creative industries, but it's the same thing. You don't want chafing. You don't... Or there's that stickiness.
Exactly.
It's like wearing shorts in like a posh... in my uncle's posh car. And he had leather seats, and then you'd be like, I don't want to go in his car, because his car was lovely, it was beautiful. I can't even remember what type it was, because I was about probably 7 or 8 years old, but I do remember feeling like somebody had literally used no more nails in the back of my legs. You try to get up and feel the skin kind of peel away, and I've never
leave behind little sweat patches.
And probably most of my hair follicles, because I've not got hair down the back of my legs now from leather seating. But that's another story.
Yeah, a worthy detour.
Is there any others? Did you because lockdown came about and it affected different people in different ways.
Yeah.
You moved from somebody who normally works on their own to in a team at a distance to so did you notice a huge difference apart from the fact when you went to get toilet paper there was none and it was like I'm an artist that needs to poo. The first 6 months was actually quite nice, to be honest. We're probably far enough away from it now. You can admit that it was actually quite pleasant at the beginning. And because my life was the same, I actually had jobs lined up for 6 months ahead already. So I wasn't worried about the work not coming in, which I know affected obviously a lot of people. I had work line queued up, and my work life is pretty solitary anyway, so all the communication is done by email or Skype. Well, not Skype anymore, right? Everything's Zoom now. But so in terms of work life, nothing changed. And then even for the first few months, I mean, it was disappointing. The lockdown didn't kick in very hard in the Netherlands early on, so we were still playing board games and only less people and with a bit more care and distance. But it wasn't until I think the autumn that we really started getting restricted to how many people we could see and stuff. So still playing games and working as normal. So it wasn't a massive difference. It was kind of just nice to have the quiet time, and also because everyone else went into panic mode. It kind of actually took the pressure off of a lot of the jobs because everyone's deadline suddenly shifted and they didn't know if they wanted things quite as soon as they wanted them anymore. So deadlines got more relaxed and you could just I don't feel like working today, whereas normally I just work 6 days a week, and I was able to actually take some time off in the spring. So to be honest, it was fairly positive at the beginning. And then I liked it.
Yeah.
Can we have more people trying pangolins, please?
Pandemic, that'd be great. Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. Joking aside, that's kind of what they're thinking about at the moment. I mean,
here we go. Yeah. What's next? Yeah.
I have no idea. Asteroids.
It's changed a lot as we've gone, I guess. So the longer it's gone on, it's changed, right? The dynamic. So just gets old. Even if I enjoy my own company and I make my own projects and I get busy with little ideas I have, so I was able to entertain myself for a really long time. But after a while, you're like, just need a change to the rhythm. So we're kind of at that point now, but hopefully things are starting to ease up.
One of the other things was the conventions kind of all being
cancelled. That was quite fortuitous for me. Because I decided in the winter that I wasn't going to go to any conventions this year, last year. Because usually I go to UK Games Expo and I go to Spiel. it's kind of 60-40 for business and pleasure. And I decided this year I wouldn't actually make the trips. So so I didn't book the hotels and I didn't book the flights and things. So and actually, if you're going for work, I mean, they're both exhausting. They're great events and they're fun and everything, but I'm usually dead after Spiel. So, like, sleep for 2 days and then sort of slowly recover for a week after that, just running around and having all those meetings and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's really nice to catch up with everyone in the industry and friends from like media stuff, but it is exhausting. So it wasn't bad to have a year off. But it also changed a lot how the industry's worked. So like losing those conventions really disrupted the flow of new projects, and you really felt it in the autumn that there was a change of pace to the normal year because people weren't rushing to get stuff out for Essen. So that was definitely different.
Did you notice it affected any of the kind of the business development for yourself, like the kind of the offhand kind of potential one-offs that you have? You know, because sometimes because what happens is you'll meet somebody at a con and they'll be like, I've not seen you for ages. It's like, oh yeah, I want to speak to you about this potential job. Did you find that?
You don't know, do you? I mean, I've probably missed certain opportunities, and there was always I've been working with the guys from Undaunted, so I'd always meet up with David Thompson and Trevor Benjamin, and then some of the guys from there's a really good game design collective based around Cambridge that both of those guys used to be connected to. So I'd meet all those designers and all those people, and you make all these connections over drinks and dinner and stuff, and you never know what comes out of that. So I've always had some projects come back from that. But on the other hand, I've been lucky. I mean, I've built up a fairly decent portfolio of board games now and got quite a few repeat clients for games that I've illustrated. So I'm still fully booked until September now. So we'll see what happens then. But it hasn't meant I haven't had the work. But I haven't picked up many new projects. I've mostly now got projects from clients that come back every year or come back for new projects. So new and exciting projects. I haven't. It has been harder to make those connections. You're kind of reliant on newsletters and social outreach. So that can only go so far.
Because the self-marketing's always pretty difficult. I mean, in terms of timescale, does it take long for jobs to kind of be planned out? I mean, you're saying you've got stuff until September, so when is it you're going to start looking? Is it going to be like next month, the month after, when you're going to be back?
Well, I hope I don't have to start looking. I hope I don't have to start looking. So far I've been lucky, and every time it starts to get sort of about 2 months out, someone will just call me and offer me another job. That only realistically started a couple of years ago. Before that, I was sort of having to be a bit more active about getting work. But now I'm in a better position. I'm a bit more known in the industry, so I get requests quite often. So, but I mean, if I haven't heard anything and I'm 2 months out, and I don't want to take some time off, then I'll start pushing, just reaching back out to the companies that I worked with before first. And then there's always a few companies that I'd quite like to work with in the future. So just sort of knock on those doors. But I do a lot less marketing than I used to, partly because I realize you do a lot of marketing and it's to people who you either don't really want to work for or who are never going to be a great fit. So I've really streamlined the people that I chase as well. So,
Is that put you in the position then where you kind of like attracts like, so you're more in the position where you're kind of attracting the kind of clients that you kind of want to work with? And is it also easier for you to kind of turn people down as well?
It is now. I mostly, I used to just take everything and just stack the jobs and then work an 80-hour, 90-hour week.
Wow.
Which was killer. And then I would sort of crash for a while and then reboot. And then so I realized that obviously I can't do that. And I have to just say, okay, well, I've got enough work. And because when you sort of starting out in the creative industry, especially like as an illustrator or something, obviously all work is good work, and you don't want to turn something down because it might be an opportunity in the future. But at a certain point, you have to look at your diary and say, I'm probably going to be okay for the next 6 months. Maybe I should not take this job. And if I'm overbooked now, then I just have to have faith that more jobs will come in. And I guess you just reach a certain point in your career and with a bit of confidence, where you build up your confidence, where you feel like, okay, I'll probably be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I've kind of got there now, and it's easy to just turn people down. I get asked a lot to do like a lot of new Kickstarter creators, so sort of first-time designers. I get quite a lot of inquiries for that, and I never accept those jobs. But partly just because they're potentially problematic. So they could end up being a time sink. Sometimes you get offered an interesting project and then it's worth considering. But usually, I've got a lot of work, and taking on an unknown project with someone who's a first-time creator is quite high risk for me. So I'm reluctant to take those on. But in the last 2 years, I've started actually doing consultancy for some of those projects.
All right, okay.
So maybe I help them get going with some art direction, or give them some advice on how to communicate with their illustrators they might work with, because obviously they've got sort of no idea. A lot of people are just like, we don't know who to ask, we don't know what prices are, we don't know anything. So
no.
So it can be partly guidance for that, and it can be like maybe just doing mood boards to give them some new ideas about styling. Sometimes people come to you and they're like, we want to make this game and we think it should look like this, and I look at it and I think, oh god, it shouldn't look like that at all. Or that's going to be terrible, no one's ever going to buy that. So then sometimes it's useful to just sort of do a quick breakdown. I just sort of do a 1-day mood board and then do a Skype call with them and explain my feelings of it as an art director and give them some suggestions of directions in which to go.
So what's a mood board? I'm not gonna guess. I'm not gonna guess. It's just like, and this is angry, and is it I'm not gonna guess.
It's a coverall word for just a bunch of pictures on a page, to be honest.
Right.
But it could just be doing like collecting a bunch of images on Pinterest. But usually I collect the images and then I'll do a backdrop that matches the kind of look and feel I want for the game, and then we'll have maybe pictures of characters or buildings of different styles, or a style that I think they should be going in. So sometimes they don't really know what they want, and I have a few ideas, so I'll present them with a bunch of ideas. But guide them towards the ideas that I think would probably be strongest. And sometimes if they've got a more specific idea, then I can sort of build a mood board around the idea, or we have a Skype call and then I'll say, okay, I can put together a concept for what I think the game should look like, and then give them an idea for that. So the most notable one at the moment that I've done for that was actually the Hidden Leaders campaign. Which is just about to finish on Kickstarter, I think. So it'll finish by the time this goes up. But Hidden Leaders has done super well. But when they came to me with that game, they had a very sort of low rent Magic D&D card art on that game, and way too much text and ugly icons and things. And they knew something needed to change, but they just didn't know what. So I think they originally asked me to illustrate it, and I said I couldn't do it, but that I'd give them some guidance. So after a Skype call, I ended up hooking them up with Satoshi, who did all that character art, which is fantastic work. I've wanted to get him on a board game for a long time.
The stuff there is amazing.
Character work is so good. So it was really nice to get him into a board game. And and then I designed all the card backs for that to give it the look and feel, and did all the text and icons and things to just get it feeling right. And so I did a lot with them, and then I would Skype with them like once every few weeks, once a month or something for a while, and then we had big pause, and then we'd check back in, and then I've checked in with them a lot more at the end, just before they went to Kickstarter. So that's a different way of working that I'm quite interested in pursuing a bit more, because it's interesting to see different projects.
So it's almost like it is like, as you say, it's like an art director's thing. So it's like you're just saying, look, here's my experience. This is what I can think. And it's also, well, actually, if I decide to take on the job, I can do it. But here's actually 4 or 5 artists I know that could deliver this brief for you kind of better. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of other, you can help them if they get stuck with someone, or if they don't know how to make a decision, or they don't know how to give feedback to the artist. There's lots of different ways of doing it, and I've done it with a couple of bigger clients as well. I've done it with, I won't say, just in case they care, but I've done mood boards and Skype chats with other clients just at the early stages of their projects, just to help them flesh out an idea. And again, it's like sometimes you don't know if a project's going to be a good fit, but I think sometimes a publisher feels if they ask you that they need to hire you. And I think, well, I could just look at some ideas and do some concept work, which is what I do for a video game. And then if you're interested, either I take it on or I help you find the right person to take it on. And I think that's an interesting way of working. I quite enjoy touching base and exploring a project idea. It's kind of sometimes nice not to have to do all the work, but to jump in there and come up with the concept level stuff. So, yeah.
Well, I think people need that. Because normally 9 times out of 10, are they not just saying, right, okay, let's have a look at a bunch of artists' portfolios and select somebody and going for it?
Well, if you look on the forums, like advising designers what to do, it's just like, go on ArtStation and have a look around. Well, I don't know if you've been on ArtStation or Pinterest, but it's an absolute maze. Like, there's some fantastic stuff on there, but I can guarantee that you can't afford 95% of those people.
Yeah.
Because like anyone who's doing regular work for computer games, like a first-time designer creator, there's just no way they can afford them. Like, board game prices are so low because there's just no money in the business. So, the deal that was made with Satoshi, in a way, was more to kind of license his work that he'd already done rather than buy new work, because his new work was too expensive. So that was an interesting way of working around that. But there's just so many options. It can be really overwhelming if you don't have a clear vision of what you want.
But they're not actually getting new art. They're getting kind of.
Satoshi does at least 2 or 3 times a week he posts a character. So he's got 500 or so characters all stocked up. So I think a lot of the characters that they took, they went through his whole portfolio and said, oh, these would be perfect. And then they sorted them into like all the different sea people and all the different clusters. So they made nice arrangements with that. And I think, so for some of the stretch goals, he did unique art for them, because obviously the stretch goals can pay for that. He's got so much work available, and he's never used it for board games. So there was just a whole mine there to explore.
Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Catacombs. And what I mean by that is the original first edition of Catacombs was like this kind of almost, you could say, traditional kind of dungeon crawler type stuff. But then Kwanchai got involved in like the following editions, and he said, okay, well, let's completely lighten the mood. So it looks to me like this could have been something that was pretty grimy, and it now looks like a technicoloured rainbow of dungeon fun.
Well, it's the difference between something being niche and something being like, I mean, this is the audience for this is huge now. And I think if they'd stuck with the original art style, they wouldn't have done. But if they, getting the right art style is so important, because it also changes your audience. Yeah, which is probably the same with like Catacombs 2nd edition, which did much better. It's just like you've got a much broader scope. You're reaching families, light gamers, people who want fun, and not necessarily just into killing stuff. So there's all sorts of different. When you choose your art, you're not necessarily just choosing something cool. You have to realize that you're choosing a marketing tool, and it should speak to your game, but it also mostly needs to speak to the audience that you're trying to attract, or if it's really a commercial proposition, the audience that you want for your games. It's interesting. So.
Do you ever see Kickstarter campaigns that you're just like, oh, I would have done the art so many ways differently, to this, and it would have made such a difference to how maybe people would have perceived it. There's obviously well-funded games, but is there ones that you would have jumped in and done something kind of differently, like almost like your own version? You know, you have kind of like different cuts of films, like not release the Roland cut.
Yeah.
But is there a Kickstarter you would have like went, oh, I would have loved to have worked on that one and illustrated it?
No, not specifically. I can't think of one where I think, oh, I would have loved to do that. I think there's games that I feel, still don't get the love that they could do artistically, that still end up on Kickstarter. So it's always a shame that Queen Games, they regularly do Kickstarters, but they still don't quite do a good enough job, I think, with the art stuff. So, because I think they make generally nice games. It's if you're doing a Kickstarter, I find the level a bit low still for them. So, but yeah, I can't think of right off the top of my head one game that I remember going, oh yeah, I wish I'd have been able to get my hands on that one. So, yeah. Mostly, I'm usually just impressed by how nice a lot of these things look these days. So, yeah.
The standard does look kind of incredible.
So
I think we are at the point where I think it's been laboured into so many people. You've got to have amazing looking art.
Kickstarter's just forced the issue, right? I think we probably talked about this last time, but like the demands of Kickstarter, which we'll talk about later probably as well, is just it's raised the bar just so much that if you want to compete in the retail space, then you kind of have to meet that mark a bit, and which is in general a really good thing, I think, for the industry, because I think a lot of games before, probably it's not that games have got overproduced or anything. Obviously, there are games that are massively overproduced because of Kickstarter, but in general, I think there was also a lot of publishers that just weren't that bothered about the art or didn't think it mattered. And now I think maybe even if they still don't think it matters much to the game, they realise that they have to make it matter for the audience actually does care. Like Kickstarter's allowed people to vote with their wallets, and so companies have had to sit up and adjust. So I think that's been good in general. And it's nice to see a lot of like dry-ish Euros starting to look more appealing.
Just as a side question in terms of illustration, one of the things as the board game hobby kind of progresses, people are asking obviously progressive questions. So in terms of appropriateness of art and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, is that something you find yourself kind of thinking, well, yeah, I've got to take this into consideration, or, I mean, as an artist, do you think there's always, because I don't know, I think board games as a media, is still a relatively small thing. And I think the realm of fantasy art is far going to outweigh that no matter what happens. I think you're always going to get drawings, illustrations, whatever, that some people are going to say, hey, that's not cool. There's not an awful lot of clothing on these people.
Yeah, for sure. But if you haven't got a good reason for it and you're aware of it, then there's not really a good reason to do it. So, like, if you're coming from a position of being aware of your choices, then why would you be making that choice? You know, like. Like fantasy art, you could say was its own niche or its own genre. It's probably really sort of somewhat outdated by modern standards, and there's still lots of it out there. And there are always, of course, these people who like that or want that, but sort of the world you want to live in, you want your kids to live in, the things that you think, why would I have chosen that? Like, I personally would never be interested in those kind of portrayals. Like, what do they mean? They seem so like Conan in the 80s. They've got nothing to do with, I don't know, they're sort of they feel out of date anyway. They don't feel connected to our lives. They feel old fashioned. They feel just peculiar. And they're not believable. They're like, it's framed as fantasy stuff like that. But it's like, the fantasy isn't to do with a fantasy world, because if you were doing world building in the way that, you know, good movie people or computer games people do full-on world building, then you try and build armor, and you try and think about what the people might wear and what fabrics they would have and why they would do things, you know, to build a believable world. So then to put any kind of soldier in or warrior in flimsy, ridiculous clothing, it's just like, how does that make my world believable? So
exactly. So I was just thinking,
even on the most basic premise, it's just like this completely. If you talk about immersion and world building, like, how can you defend world building and be happy with Sonya or something? Like,
I don't know. It's like, this is Barasketh of Void. What happened? Well, they defeated. Did they not defeat 1,500 zombies? It's like, yeah, but they died of pneumonia.
Exactly. Yeah, they got through all that.
Because they couldn't get a jacket. But I kind of think
it's just standard, and I think it's really good to see that it's just a broad part of normal culture, and it's really nice to see clients being much more proactively involved in that process as well, and you don't have to try and get that stuff in on your own anymore. And that's just become the standard, really.
Mm-hmm. So would that be your so going back to your art direction thing? If somebody said, right, I'm going to do a game based on the samurai era or something like that.
Yeah.
And they says, would you I want you to be kind of authentic as possible. Would you then look at, in an art director thing, kind of reaching out to people who had kind of experience in that kind of genre, I guess, as opposed to saying, right, we'll do big swords and here's a big flashy helmet kind of thing?
I did Shogun, Total War back in the day, and so that's like the tradition. Well, that's kind of weird, right? So that's like a traditional take on Japanese culture. Sort of we did that Shogun. The art for Shogun was done in sort of the Yukiri woodblock style, and and it was all done like well researched and done quite authentically, as much as you can, doing it digitally. But everything was very carefully studied and worked on for that. If you want to do it traditionally, but on the other hand, that's also not the art from the era that the Shogun era was. So it's a proxy for Japanese culture, which most people in the West haven't got the knowledge to know the difference. And I don't know. So you could say that there was something to do with appropriation there, and that some people would find maybe some of that stuff a problem. I don't know that within that specific context it would be a problem, but obviously, is the question then, do you have to ask a Japanese artist to do that, or is it okay if you're doing thorough research of the style like we did on Shogun? But
yes.
Also, like if you had to go to a Japanese woodblock artist to do pictures for your game or something, or it would cost you an absolute fortune. So
I suppose
there are you could do so.
Finding
someone who's very specialized is also someone who charges to be very specialized. So. But I would always approach it from a traditional perspective, or at least do that as part of the research, and then try and bring elements of that into whatever project. You want a bit of authenticity tied in. Research is a really big part of my work.
So, I mean, moving from art research into game design research, because Ruthless, because at the time we were discussing, I mean, a couple of years ago, obviously, we were discussing a little bit of Ruthless, And it went out there,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a lot of people that really like it and still kind of really talk about it and get excited about it. And I know that the guys at Polyhedron Collider liked it, and and now, after you've been sitting about doing nothing, pretty much like you said, you've decided to look at kind of like an expansion. The next tale, you could almost say.
Well, it's called Tall Tales, in fact. The expansion.
It's almost like I looked at the website.
I know, amazing research. You did some work.
No.
I turned on a website, looked for 2 seconds, and shut it down.
Yeah, pretty much. That's it. That's how I did it. I researched it for an hour.
Yeah, I kind of always had extra ideas when I did Ruthless, so there was always stuff that was excess, that was never good, that just wasn't appropriate to go in a base box. The original game was quite complete. So I guess for people who didn't listen to the original podcast, Ruthless is a pirate-based deck-building game with a poker element and set collection and hand management that I designed back in, published by a couple of publishers back in 2018. And there was always extra stuff that I wanted to put in there, but at some point you're just bloating the design, and it needed to be, for a first printing, as streamlined and accessible. And so I had a lot of ideas sort of still lurking around I liked, and so it was always sort of in my mind to do it. And then I kind of started it a couple of times. So I started work on the expansion probably like the year after. And then I was like, I don't know if I really want to do this. I've got a lot of jobs on, and I've got a lot of, I'm illustrating all these games, and I don't have the time. I was working non-stop for a long time. So then it kind of fell on the back burner, and then I wasn't going to do it. And I guess, it's kind of never went away. So I just sort of occasionally would pick it back up again and poke at it again. And I guess when the lockdown kicked in, then it gave me the time to just spend that extra bit of time and go, okay, well, I've got time to draw the rest of the art, and I've got time to do the testing and refine this. So,
did winning the UK Games Expo Award in 2019 for Best Strategic Card Game, did that maybe think, really should maybe think about another one of these?
Yeah, well, it was nice to actually get some. I mean, we got some good reviews and good feedback, so it was nice to get those and getting them. I mean, getting an award is like confirmation that maybe you did a good job. So,
I'm just imagining you just walking past a whole group of game designers and going, "In your faces, game design. This is totally easy.
Yeah, first time.
We're all just lazy." First time, suck it in the sea. Award, jing.
It was a bit ridiculous to win it, but then it's kind of, that's the problem. It's like, then you've got this thing, and you're like, okay, well, I made this game, like the first proper game that I worked on. Obviously, I did a few other little bits for myself, but then the first game I put out there, and it went really well, and it came together pretty quickly in the design, and then it came together as well as a game, and it's pretty well loved by its fan base. But so there was partly like, I kind of, to prove to myself that it wasn't just a fluke, I suppose, doing it again, like, and
I must say, I do like I like the display cabinet you've got behind you that's got the award in it. That's really nicely lit.
There's nothing else in this room. It's just that. As you can see.
I feel like Indiana Jones.
This whole room, exactly. It's just a spotlight from above.
And if anybody tries to take the trophy, then a big rolling ball just comes down. It's got sentry guns like in Aliens.
I think also there's a degree to which I was a little bit embarrassed by it as well. So, I'm English, so I have to be embarrassed by achievements as well. So,
nothing worse than being successful.
It's awful.
I'm really sorry for doing well.
That's how we all brought up, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that was good. And there's, but it was also like, so it's also always been a toss up between doing the expansion for Ruthless and getting on with the next game design. So there was a point where I was like, really, I could do the expansion for Ruthless. Like, I have the ideas, but there's all this. I know how long the testing process and all that flow takes. And I was like, do I want to invest that time in expanding this game, or do I just want to get on with the new design? And it kind of went back and forth. Like, it's obviously really tempting to start something new. Okay, and but in the end, I'll probably get around to doing both. So chose to do this one first in the end. But so I have got other ideas lined up, but this was kind of okay. Well, I've got the time now, so I'll just get this done and get it out of my mind partly as well. Like, I just wanted to wrap up the project to a degree and bring it to a good closure. So.
Well, and the other thing is as well is you can also on the box. You can actually write from the award-winning games designer of Ruthless.
Yeah, you can put
that's your
badge.
pitch. In fact, the award badge could take up
most
50% of the box. You just have a little, just a little kind of just a hint of what's in here.
Yeah.
But it must have been a huge boost to your confidence. But for the expansion, for people that have it, for people that have the original Ruthless, or people that haven't got the original game, what can they expect in the Tall Tales?
So for people who have it, for people who have the game, then it's a kind of a modular expansion, but everything can be played together. And it's all been tested thoroughly to work together as well. So even though it's modular, but if you did that on your first play, it would probably dry your eyeballs and your brain out, because there's just a few too many different things to add in one game. But after a couple of games, you can get your head around it. But there's quite a lot in there. Like, it's almost as big an expansion as the original game was. It's got a lot of cards, new tokens, and I think, how many modules have we got? I think there's 6 or 7. So we've got like all new. It's based on the pirates are in suits. So the people who know the game will know, but the pirates are in suits and ranks. They're like normal playing cards in a way, because you're building poker sets at the end of the round. So there's 2 new sets of those, and there are 5 or 6 new powers. 6 new powers in the game. So those new powers are scattered across the 2 new suits. Then there's a new suit with mer people, so the merfolk, and they were really fun to illustrate. They look great, and they have the new powers on, but they also have this dual rank system. So obviously normally a card would have 1 number, but these cards have 2 numbers. So you can, when you play them in your poker set, you can choose which number they're going to be. So they add quite a lot of extra flexibility. They've got like this extra mobility and flexibility to them. So they're really fun. Cool. They're really fun to play with. They kind of shake up the game quite a bit. Then we added I always wanted to have a second. A lot of the thing about original Ruthless was that I wanted it to be like a deck builder that gave you a lot more sort of decision space. I feel like a lot of deck builders, like, you get 5 cards, you play the cards, you do the best thing that you could do with those cards, and then it's the next player's turn. And here I wanted, like, every time you do something that you have to make a decision. So I also wanted to add in extra scoring options, so that there were different ways to win the game. And so now there's in-game scoring in the form of quests. So if you fulfill certain objectives during the game, you can claim a chest. So we have these new tokens that are treasure chests, and they give you a good choice as well. So they're worth 1 point if you've still got it at the end of the game, but they've also got a nice power on them as well, like a bonus action. So you can discard the chest and get an additional action on your turn. which sometimes can be the difference between like winning a round and losing a round. So choosing when to time those out is good. And then the next module that goes in hand with that is this heroes module. Sort of, we call them the Notorious. And there are 5 different sort of legendary figures from pirate lore. So Sinbad's the fantasy one, but then we have like Blackbeard and Jingshi and Anne Bonny and Black Caesar, who are all well-known pirate legends. And you can recruit those instead of recruiting them with coins like you would have done. Now you recruit them with chests. So you have to collect some chests and do some quests in order to be able to get one of those heroes on your side. And they come with much stronger powers and do interesting things, mix up the scoring again. And then we have these 2 threat modules. So we have the Kraken, which is a series of tentacle cards that get shuffled in with the deck that you can attack or brawl, and you get bonuses from those and interesting things. And we also have, for people who like a bit more take that in their game, so the Kraken kind of softens the attack, which will appeal to people because it gives you something else to attack other than other players. So it takes away some of the take that in the game. And then if you want more of the take that, then we have a module called the Cursed, which is kind of like zombie pirates. And they're kind of like a take that thing where they're like a curse, basically. So you attack it, but then it goes into your opponent's deck. It goes into their ship, so it goes into play and messes up their crew, kind of thing, in a small way, but a fun way. But then they can also choose, once that cursed pirate's on their ship, they could choose to attack that pirate, and then it gets passed to one of their opponents. So it's kind of like a little sort of hot potato curse mechanism, which is
I like that.
Which works really nicely with like 3 players. It's a bit more strategic with 2 players, that kind of mechanism there. But with the 3 and 4 players, that's really fun. So that's there if your group likes that kind of volatility, of course. So there's a sort of something for all different people, and there's lots of new variety. There's lots of new bonus actions. And so far, all the testing's gone really well, and people seem to be really liking all the extra content. It definitely opens up the game a lot and adds a lot more.
How easy was it to do the testing? Because I was assuming
it was a bit of a nightmare. It wasn't easy.
Imagine.
So Ruthless was originally designed as a 2-player game, so a lot of like just testing the concepts at the concept level. I was able to do double-handed, so then you play both hands yourself, and that just tells you sort of whether it's working. And then after that, I sort of assign a personality to my other hand, and so that one I play in 2 different ways with the 2 different hands, and then once I've got past that stage on my own, then I start pushing it out into the world. Because
I was just imagining you walking around the other side of the board and putting on the top hat, and then bringing out the cane and kind of start twiddling the moustache and say, I see you have played the Kraken this time, Roland. Well, I'll not let you get away with it. Ha 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 ha. And then you go back round the table, take the top half, put the cane in. And in fact, in some ways, you enjoyed the dress up more than you did playtesting, which is why it took 6 months long.
That's why it took
It's like the game's not ready, but I'm opening. I'm going to be opening at the Globe Theatre next week when it reopens again. I'm playing Richard III.
And all the other characters.
Exactly. Have you seen my Lear? It's outstanding.
Yeah. But for a long time, we were allowed to have, like, I think in England and America, there were real heavy lockdowns quite quickly.
Yeah. That's because we were rubbish.
But we're not particularly great here in the Netherlands. But we were allowed to see like what I think one or two. We were allowed to see two people. We were allowed to have two people in the house visit. So you could still test at that point. So until about January, that was kind of the case that you could have two people in the house. So a lot of testing did get done up to then, and then once after January, you were allowed one person in the house. I think for a period, maybe no people. I can't remember. So then everything sort of moved over to Tabletopia for a while.
Yeah.
And I was really lucky that I was able to find a bunch of people that were willing to test fairly regularly on Tabletopia. The problem with Tabletopia is it tells you if the game's working, but it doesn't necessarily it doesn't give you a good feel for how the game's playing, because everything's so slow. So you're not really playing the game, you're playing the game mechanically.
Yeah.
But all the table feel is difficult to maintain. The pace is a lot slower, and a lot of the energy is missing. So the feel of whether it's fun or not is much harder for you to pick up on. So normally a lot of what I'm looking for when I'm doing the testing is how people are reacting. Partly I'm looking to see if they're using the new mechanisms and how they're interacting with them, obviously. The other part of it is just, are they having fun? When someone uses this power, how do the other people on the table react? If someone takes a card that someone wanted, how big a deal is that? Are they getting stuck on something? And all these things you can only tell by watching people, or the banter that happens. And there's a bit of banter obviously that happens over chat, but it's not the same, is it? It's all stilted. So
and because people are taking their time,
is difficult. And people are taking their time, or like Tabletopia doesn't deal with cards very well, which is unfortunate for a card game. It deals with stacking decks in a really annoying way. So people the first time you play with someone who's not used Tabletopia, you spend half the session just trying to help them understand why Tabletopia is so fiddly. And and then their feeling
number of times I've done that and just ejected
like,
stuff.
Did you enjoy the game? And their feeling is completely mixed up with how much they were irritated by the interface. So you're like,
exactly.
So the feedback wasn't necessarily useful. So it's really good for testing the mechanics and being able to do that. So you had to just take it on that level. And then in terms of the interaction stuff, I had to just, I could still test with one person at a time. So I was able to do a lot of the two-player stuff. And then as soon as the restrictions lifted, we just had to sort of double down on doing 3-player testing and 4 players and getting the test kits out there so other players, we could get as much of that done as possible. So, and it's been difficult. But
how was it? How was it in terms of like, in terms of like the marketing side of things? Like getting it out to previewers and people like that. I mean, is that?
Well, this is I think one of the things that's actually we're going to talk about. I think this the Kickstarter and building an audience and all that kind of stuff. It's definitely much harder now.
There's structure to my chat, Roland. I'm getting round to it. I'm kind of working around there, and I'm getting there, and you just ruined it all.
Did I?
So just completely destroyed it.
Back then and re-record?
No. Let's why you know that it's like trying to
lifted the curtain on Richard's methods. Shattered the illusion.
It'd be like trying to reverse a car that's crashed into a wall. You're going to leave some stuff behind. Let's not bother doing that.
I was just trying to prove you do actually work to do this thing. Not just a bumbling idiot. Do you know what you're doing?
I'm just literally winging it. There you go. But in terms of that side of things.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the big thing with conventions, right? I think that's a really difficult thing, right? In a different year, we would have taken probably test versions of this, at least to present in some form to Spiel last year. And we might have waited until UK Games Expo and then launched the Kickstarter following UK Games Expo, just to build audience. face to face with lots of different people. Like I think the year that we released Ruthless, I think locally in the Netherlands and Belgium, I went to at least 10 conventions with Ruthless. And you build a following then, and people post about it, and you get photos, and you get real different sorts of feedback, and just building that audience is different. It's easier to reach out to previewers and that when you actually see them on the floor of a convention as well, and you have a drink with them and stuff. So so that's definitely been a hindrance, and I think that's probably been felt across the entire industry, really. People are launching, putting projects out there, and unless you've got a big advertising budget or you've got really good media connections, it can be quite hard to pull all that together at the moment, I think, and get an audience without spending a lot of time on social media.
And also, as somebody who is previewing games for Kickstarter myself, it's incredibly difficult to even get them together to get the games played. There's some games that
exactly.
I play with my son, and he's fine. He comes on. Other ones, it's like my daughter will play with me, and then some of them I'm just sitting there going, this is going to be really difficult to get anybody to play with. And then you feel really, it's okay. I mean, the Kickstarter ones are time sensitive ones. It's like, okay, this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to play it, and then you put together what you can. Some of them, it's just like, I'm not going to, I'd love to do something for this, but it's going to be really difficult to actually
I've seen
table.
some of your videos where you're sort of trying to work out ways of talking about them and presenting them in different ways. And I can see, having to adapt to find new solutions to that, and it's really difficult. Also, you're sending review copies out, and you have to be realistic that tons of review copies are still being sent out. There's probably more games being made almost than before, but people are not able to play them as much. So I've sent out tons of review copies now, but the reality is that the hottest of the hotness will get played first, and people don't get that many play sessions in. So you just sort of cross your fingers and hope that somehow you make it up the pile. If you're a small producer, if you're a big company, you're going to get your game played. If you're a smaller producer, then it's definitely going to be harder, unless you've already picked up a bit of buzz from. You got lucky and picked up a buzz from one. It can start a catalyst, but it's definitely tricky. Definitely, I think that's partly always the case to a degree. But like with the plays now, I think a lot of previewers and reviewers were probably playing around 20 games a week kind of thing or more, and now that's probably down to 4 or 5. So,
and even if that as well, because if you're in some situations, I know there's obviously some media creators out there that they're married to their games partner, or they live with their games partner, and so if they want to get the games played, they're the ones that they've just handed them out, and then there's others that are just they've just not had that access, so they're like, join me next week as we go through another solo mode.
There's definitely been an uptick in solo mode videos, and then also some people have definitely done a better job of trying to work out how to integrate some of the digital stuff. But like I said, it plays so slowly on digital that it's kind of agony to watch any of those. The guys I've seen streaming, like say Ross from More Games Please, he's doing a really cool job.
He's doing really good stuff, but he's actually doing the physical.
Exactly, and he's got a good setup, and he's got the fun and the personality to sort of keep you entertained, even when he's fiddling and faffing around. Is really good with the people, so it's
despise
really
him.
Good flow.
Absolutely, just
And his hair
it's
as well,
kind of a rate. It's just all there. It's the whole thing. It's the beard.
Package.
It's the hair. It's the kind of the friendly personality. And you go,
genuine.
I'm going to meet him. I'm going to meet him in real life, and he's going to be awful. And he's not. He's just genuinely really nice as well. And you end up just. I often rage cry when I watch him. I'll be perfectly honest.
But you just can't stop.
I just can't. I just need to turn away. And it's like
Yeah.
In terms of getting Ruthless Tall Tales out there,
yeah,
it says it's coming soon on Kickstarter.
Yeah. So the plan up until very recently was that we were going to launch the Kickstarter on June the 1st.
All right.
Which is very soon. And a few things have changed in the last couple of weeks. Well, that have made us maybe change up the system. So, the sort of announcement kind of thing is that we're not going to be running a Kickstarter, and that we've decided to move over to kind of a pre-order based campaign. It will still be a campaign. Oh. It will still be. It's going to be a sort of a limited edition thing. So,
right, okay.
It's going to be very few copies, just for the people who want to back. We won't be looking for retail or distribution. So, if people want to get on board or want to find out what it's about, then the pre-order is the opportunity, and after that, there'll be very few copies available, maybe on our website. So if there's stuff left. So it's being published by me for the English edition. That's Roland's Revenge Games, and then Board Game Circus are doing the German edition. So we're doing a dual version for that. And I think so. There's 400 copies left of the base game in English and 400 left in German. So there'll be 400 possible pledges for the base game and the expansion, and then the expansion will be available during the campaign. So that's how we're going to run it. And the reasons are many and complicated. I think there's so we started doing all the Kickstarter stuff, and we've done the page, and we've started setting up the page and sending out to previewers, and it started to get to a point where we were starting to work out the numbers, and based on projections, because you can get kind of a feel for how many people are following and what you need to break even. And then you're sort of thinking, so as a small producer, there's so many things that you have to do in order to keep up with what's expected from a Kickstarter. And everyone does it because that's what you have to do. Like, Kickstarters have got to a point where most Kickstarters look great, right? And they all come with all bells and whistles, and they've got fantastic graphic design and beautiful pages.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. But for a small producer, that is a ton of work. That a big company has their own graphic designers on and their own people, and all this takes time and effort, and a lot of it, and which is great. But and we have put in all that work, and you'll be able to see that on the preview of the site when it's up next week. The website's already up and looks okay, but the campaign is going up next week and looks the preview page of that will go up next week, and it looks great already. But in terms of like doing it for Kickstarter, worrying about stretch goals, having to pay for lots of extra videos, and then when it comes to the campaign, we're a very small team. So there's me and a couple of guys at Board Game Circus, and we're all working on other stuff all the time. So we've both got. Yeah. I'm working on 3 different board games I'm illustrating at the moment, and they've obviously got other projects that they've got in the process. And we kind of decided that we also wanted to just have this version of Ruthless just be the best version of itself, to also be able to work on the projects that we're doing, put this out to the fans, and maybe not try and have this big hit, but instead make the project what we wanted to make it and focus on what we want it to be. without all this extra pressure. There's so much pressure and so much busy work with the Kickstarter that it was, the risk and reward was just out of balance. So in terms of the numbers, like, this game's never going to make a ton of money. Like, if we sold 5,000 copies, we'd get there. But, you've got to start selling those numbers to do really well. And our projections don't show anything like that. And we're not really sure that that's particularly what we wanted for it. So we decided to take a step back for our own mental health as well. Just to we've got a lot going on in our lives. I'm enjoying the other projects I'm working on. And also just financially. So there comes a point where you have to pay for, I was going to have to pay for other previewers to do videos. So say it costs sort of between 250 to 1,000 euros, depending on who you want to get to preview the game. But so if I pay for that, then I have to sell now, say, 100 extra copies of the game just to pay for that video.
Yeah.
Plus I have to pay for the international express delivery to get it there. That's 60 euros. And then a copy of the game, and it's a pre-production copy, so it's 20 euros. So it's already cost a fortune, but I have to make back in sales. And once you start working out the numbers, it was like, well, we could easily end up making a loss here because we'll have spent so much before the campaign just to get there. And we probably would do well. Like, we have faith in Ruthless. It's a great game, but the stress just isn't worth it for us. And we've got enough fans that we know want the game and are interested in the game. And for me, it's a passion project, I want to see the art completed on this, finish it up, present this version of the game out there to the people who like it and the people who really like deck builders or just are interested in pirate games or whatever. And actually that's enough, That satisfies my creator need. And the stress of trying to make a hit game and do my job and all the other things, actually, I had to stop and ask. There's a question: do I need that? Like, is that what I want? Like, what's the prize there? And the prize isn't big enough for the work, so it's really a risk and reward thing. And that we could get that successful, but the actual reward and the amount of effort that has to go into that to get there isn't worth it.
I don't think that people realise when they're looking at a Kickstarter campaign, there's potentially like €2,500 worth of preview videos that are sitting on a page, depending on how big the campaign is. I mean,
if you're using the big guys, it's crazy.
I mean, if you're saying if you said that to somebody like 4 or 5 years ago, you're gonna be, all right, I see you've got a funding goal of 10 grand. Well, you're gonna, two and a half grand of that's going to be going on people. You felt people on doing YouTube videos telling you what they think of your game. You'd be like, shut up.
Yeah,
but it's a real industry now. It's a huge industry now.
Yeah, it's changed, and marketing's super important. But it's also like, in terms again of like real costs and real rewards. Like, I did this game because I wanted to do it, not because, like I said, because I want to make any money out of it. I'm not crazy. I've been in the board games industry long enough to know that that's not why you get into the board games industry. You do it for the passion, and that's the end of it. And if you happen to make a bit of cash on the way, then it's wonderful. Bonus. So for me, I want to get it in the world and get it out there. And I wouldn't even make the money back that it cost me to illustrate the cards in the game, even if the campaign did really well. Like, normally I would get paid more than most. Like, a good Kickstarter's going to fund that. So
I could just imagine you like struggling with like getting somebody's eyes right or something, and just going, I don't even know why I'm bothering. I'm not even getting paid for this, and just literally flipping the table and walking it.
Right, if you weren't, it's just kind of like that. If you weren't in it for the love of it, and you're like, I really enjoy drawing this, I want to do this, I got this really great idea that I want to pull through in this game, there's just no way you could get it done because it doesn't make sense. It's crazy. Even if you take out the fact that I both designed and illustrated it, and have done most of the graphic design for the Kickstarter campaign and all of that stuff. Like the man hours involved in that alone, no Kickstarter could ever pay that back that I could do on my scale. It's impossible. So if you're honest with yourself about making that money back, and money isn't the issue, then taking a step back and going, okay, well, I can try and recoup some of that loss, or I can just say, hey, this has been fun, and I'm doing it for the cool and the fun, and because I believe in this game. I think it's really great, and so did my fans. So it's kind of a bit like that, and it's like, let's not pretend that it's about the money. And I see a lot of Kickstarters that fund, and you think there's no way those people made any money. Like, just the amount of work, like just the man hours alone. If you actually think of, even if you only pay yourself €20 an hour, you're not making money. I couldn't even count the number of hours I spent on making this expansion and doing all the work related to it. Genuinely.
Is that why the expansion is you're selling it for €127
per copy? Yeah, just it's only got 50 cards. Yeah, but they're great cards.
and is it right in saying that 27 of those cards you've asked the people to actually colour them in themselves?
Yeah,
you just give them like it's like a paint by numbers job.
I'll draw a line drawing and fill it in. I haven't got the time for this.
Exactly. What you expected.
That's the other thing as well. Here. Like, there was a point at which we were saying, we wanted the product to be the game to be a certain price. And as you're starting to work out how much the Kickstarter is going to cost and factoring in Kickstarter's 10%, the price of the game was starting to creep up. And it's like, that's not what we want. We're not trying to make this expensive product and make money. And, it's not in the spirit of the thing. So so we really want to keep it a fair price for what it is, and you get a lot in the game. But we're not, like I said, I'm not trying to make the money back, because I don't think that's this isn't a business proposition. I'm not a businessman by any stretch of the imagination. I'm already an illustrator and a designer.
That's so how much is a copy then?
The expansion.
Well, you've come to the wrong place.
Sorry, mate. The expansion will be it's going to be €16.
Wow.
But on the first 24 hours, it will be €12. And then with a copy of the base game, it will be €36.
That's nothing.
So it's a really good deal. But like I said, it's really more about deal. Just want to put it out there, and I want people to get it and love it and enjoy what we did on it. And I think if people have enjoyed other games I've illustrated, or like deck builders, or want to see something a bit more interactive in a deck builder, or something different. I mean, Ruthless is not your standard deck builder, and it does offer something new. And I'm confident that it's a good design. So I just want to get it out there, really. That's my aim. And then I want to get on with the next design and get on with all the other board games I'm illustrating.
Yeah.
And get back to the drawing table and not spend so much time trying to work out how Facebook ads work, which is a horrifying rabbit hole that I wish I'd never had to go down.
Which is put your ad out there and then get your entire page suspended for like 3 days because you used
oops, wrong keyword.
Exactly. Yeah. I thought putting Zuckerberg wants to be a dictator would be fine, but it turns out I was wrong. So there you go. So the page will be going live. By the time people are listening to this, the page will be probably in live in the next couple of days, or
the website's already up. The website's already ruthless-game.com. And that has links. It shows all the new stuff that's in the game already. Right. And it shows, for people who don't know about Ruthless, it shows there's videos of the reviews from the first game. There's a how to play sort of playthrough with graphics, like a visual overview. And there's a bunch of stuff on there at the moment, and then there'll be some sort of preview showing the pledges and all the extra stuff going up soon. And with a lot of players, a lot of the people we have got copies out to are starting to share stuff on social media. So we've got a nice following on Instagram. And, so it's all going up sort of in the next week, hopefully. And hopefully, the people who really like the game will come. And our break-even point is much more comfortable now. So we can afford to get the printing done and get it out there. And this way we don't have to do tons of stretch goals and things. So we can also keep the printing in Europe, hopefully, and that'll mean we can deliver certainly
even quicker,
definitely this year.
That's cool.
So, because I really hate this: buy a game on Kickstarter, forget about it, and then a year and a half later, something turns up on your doorstep and go, "Oh, did I back that?" So,
I've totally fallen out with those types of games.
Yeah, I find it really difficult to do that anymore. So I really want to be able to deliver really quickly. So certainly with that, we get the proper quotes back from the manufacturers tomorrow or Friday. It is Friday already, isn't it? So Monday, I guess now.
Pretty much.
But I'm hoping sort of 6 months maximum for production and shipping if we get them done in Poland or something. So
super duper. Yeah. So if people have listened along and they were like, "Oh, this is amazing," and they want to know more, where can they find you on the internet webs, Roland?
Well, they can find me most easily on Instagram. It's my preferred social media. I'm on there as Roland the Illustrator, and Ruthless is on there as Ruthless.bg. So you can see more about the game and regular updates there. And then the website is ruthless-game.com. So that's kind of everything. I am on Twitter and things as well, but you can find that on your own.
You've got the main website about Roland's. If you're listening along tonight and you are thinking about getting a game illustrated and even like some art direction and stuff like that, you've got rolandsrevenge.com.
Yeah. Hold on, for remembering my actual business.
I'm pitching for you.
Oh, I actually have a business. Yeah, my illustration business here. For sure. Yeah, I'm
Roland's Revenge.
And I am booked ahead. So if you're thinking about something down the line, like let me know in advance. And that goes for all people who are looking for illustrators. Really, try and reach out to your illustrators a bit earlier. Because when I started in the business, they would be like, "Oh, we've got this game. Are you available?" And you go, "Yeah, when would it be?" And it's like, in the next month.
Tuesday.
You're like, oh, Christ. Yeah. Why is it always like this? Why do I always need to do everything tomorrow? So, you'll get better product if you ask early. So, ask me early, ask everyone early, and you'll get better stuff.
Unless you ask me, because then you just give me longer to write rubbish jokes.
Yeah.
And come up with a worse intro. There you go. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, just go to the Googles. We're still there. We still exist, and search for We're Not Wizards. You'll find us in all the different places, faces, staces, and bases on Instagram and Twitter, and we're on TikTok because we're fannies. I have no idea.
Oh, are you on TikTok? 12?
I'm not 12.
No, apparently.
I'm not 12. Apparently not. And we do videos on YouTube, and we've got our blog, which we do written stuff, which is we'renotwizards.co.uk. And if you want to find out what 412 episodes of me talking sounds like, you can go to we'renotwizards.com, basically. I don't mention all the episodes because some of them aren't me talking, so they're not important. If you like what you've listened to, then jump onto Apple Podcasts and drop us a subscription. And you can do a review and all that thing. Remember, if you are going to be giving us a review, don't give us 5 stars. No, give us 5 stars. No, don't give us 10 stars.
Don't
give us 10 stars. I've just mussed it up. You know what to do. I'm not even editing this. This is not going to happen. There's no editing going on. It's just like that. I've been round long enough. Yeah. I don't see why I should even be asking.
No
you should be lining up. You should be lining up.
You're definitely not getting 5 stars for this episode.
Definitely, probably not.
Sloppy
probably
work.
A good 6.5, maybe. Sloppy. A good 3.5.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can beg later. It's fine. As long as they don't give us 1 star, because it'll make us cry. I'm not, I'm fine with being average. It's just like it's an acceptable thing. I can't even get 500 likes on Instagram or viewers or whatever they call them. I don't care. All you youngins with your virtual online media. But anyway, there's only a couple more things to do before I turn this into an absolute car crash. The first thing is to say a big thank you to Roland for coming along.
Thanks for having me.
No, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay then, I'll take it.
That's fine. And the second thing is to make sure you go and check out Ruthless. Tall Tales, which I'll put in the links in the show notes. Just click and press buttons and pre-order it. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from the rather wonderful, rather fantastic. Do you know in the previous show notes? I just read this. It says Roland MacDonald is his name, and if he was a boat, he'd be called Artie McArtface.
Excellent. That dates that very well. Jesus.
That takes me back.
Yeah.
So it's a goodbye from Roland. Say goodbye, Roland.
Goodbye, Roland.
And it's goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, make something awful, and don't be heartless, be ruthless. But until the next time, goodbye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.